Okay, let's dive deep. Today, we're really focusing in on one specific article. It takes us inside an ICE detention facility down in Texas.
Right, yeah. The source is an article titled, "What's Happening Inside This ICE Facility in Texas Should Shock Your Conscience." Came out very recently, June 6th, 2024. The authors are Beatrice Aldana Marquez and John Major Eason.
And our mission with this deep dive really is just to unpack what this particular source is claiming. What it says is happening inside this place, the Bluebonnet Detention Center.
It uses that as its main example.
Exactly. And what perspective that gives us, according to them, on the wider situation with U.S. immigration detention.
Yeah.
And why focus so tightly? Well, because understanding what specific sources like this actually say, it's pretty crucial if you want to grasp the details of these complex issues. It gives you those clear takeaways straight from the material.
And this article, right away, it sets up a big contrast. Yeah. It points out where the public attention, media attention, usually goes when we talk about immigration.
Yeah, it talks about the things that get a lot of coverage, right? Like debates over deportations, under different presidents, or specific Supreme Court decisions.
Or even temporary holds on removals.
Right, temporary holds. It gives that example about Venezuelan migrants in a facility in El Salvador getting attention, things like that.
Exactly. So the authors argue that while those kinds of legal fights, policy battles, they get the headlines, less focus, based on their reporting anyway, lands elsewhere in the system.
And where does the article say that focus is missing? It really makes the case that it's on what it calls pervasive human rights violations. And it argues these aren't just, one-off incidents, but are allegedly happening at detention centers pretty much across the country.
And that's where the Bluebonnet Detention Center in Texas really comes into play. It's the article's key example, used to illustrate these bigger claims about conditions being widespread. It specifically mentions 31 men there right near the beginning.
Okay, so Bluebonnet is sort of the case study here. It's how the article tries to show in detail what these pervasive violations actually look like, according to the authors.
Yeah, it doesn't just stay general.
It digs into specific allegations. So what kinds of conditions or situations does the source actually describe inside that facility?
Well, it details several really concerning claims. These are based on accounts from detainees and others involved. For instance, it talks about reportedly inadequate medical care,
Okay.
really significant hurdles to getting legal help, accessing counsel,
Right.
and also the punitive use of solitary confinement.
Yeah.
And it highlights that those 31 men mentioned earlier, they were reportedly part of a peaceful protest about the conditions.
Ah, okay.
And the article really raises questions about what happened to them afterwards, how the facility responded to that dissent.
Okay, so the mention of the 31 men isn't just a statistic. According to this source, it connects directly to events inside, to detainees raising concerns, and then the alleged reaction from the facility's administration. That definitely adds concrete detail to the broader claim about pervasive issues.
Exactly.
Does the article try to connect Bluebonnet specifically to the bigger picture, the whole immigration detention system?
Oh, absolutely. Physicians Bluebonnet as, well, representative of systemic problems. Problems the authors argue are just inherent in immigration detention across the U.S.
So not just an isolated bad apple in their view.
Not according to them, no. The article suggests things like a lack of transparency, maybe insufficient oversight in these places,
Right.
that these contribute to these conditions sticking around. It argues Bluebonnet isn't an anomaly, but it's sort of symptomatic of a larger pattern you see across the detention network.
Right.
So it's linking these specific incidents, the conditions it describes there, to what it sees as really fundamental flaws in the whole system.
So basically, the source is making a very pointed argument about where public awareness tends to land. It's saying, look, everyone talks about deportations, court cases, but based on our reporting, this stuff, the conditions like those claimed at Bluebonnet, including alleged violations, is also happening. It's widespread, and it often gets overlooked. It's a deliberate point about where the spotlight is versus where the authors think it should be.
That's precisely it. The core argument here is really about redirecting attention, moving it from those more visible parts of immigration enforcement
Yeah.
towards the, let's say, less visible reality of detention conditions.
Yeah.
And it uses those specific examples and claims from Bluebonnet to make that case.
Okay, let's recap the core claim from this source then. The article, "What's Happening Inside This IC Facility in Texas Should Shock Your Conscience," argues that while things like deportations and court rulings get a lot of public focus, There's reportedly much less attention on what it describes as pervasive human rights violations inside U.S. detention centers. And it uses specific claims about conditions and incidents involving men at the Bluebonnet facility in Texas as its main evidence for this larger pattern.
So for you listening to this deep dive, think about the source's argument, this contrast in focus, what gets the attention versus what it claims is overlooked. Based on its claim about media focus versus the reality it describes inside detention centers. What parts of the immigration system do you think are often less discussed? And maybe why does that difference exist? This source definitely pushes you to consider the different layers here and where our collective gaze tends to fall.